everyone and welcome back to my channel. In last week's video we made a skirt from a two-piece and today we make the other part of the two-piece and that will be the sweater. So if you haven't seen it yet, I will put in this video to the inspiration that I had for this two-piece so you can see how the skirt looked and also how the sweater will look like. And I will link down below in the description box the video of the skirt, so that if you like this sweater you can also make the skirt to it and you have the whole two-piece. So I hope you like this video. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done already. If you have, thank you so much. And I'll show you again the inspiration and then I'll show you how we're gonna make the sweater. And this was my inspiration. I saw it on Lulu's website. And it is a two-piece that is a web skirt, but the web is attached at the waistband. We make an elasticated waistband, but it looks really nice like this. It's just a straight-on watertight skirt, and then we make a matching top that also has a web in the front, also attached to the, I don't know what it's called in English, the trim or the bottom of the top. We sew that on, so we make it just of the same fabric as the rest of the top is, and also some wider sleeves, well at least wider on the bottom of the sleeves, that we can make cuffs, and you can choose if you want to make rather large cuffs, high cuffs, or just the normal smaller cuffs, whatever you prefer. So it's a web in the top and a web in the skirt, and I thought it was really nice. And when you make this out of a knitted fabric, then it's really comfortable piece to have. So for the sweater we have that web here in the front, long sleeves that are a bit wider on the bottom so that you can gather them to put them onto cuffs, and you can make them as long or as short as you like. I make a rather longer cuff. Here also we gather the bottom of our sweater to a waistband or a hip band, depending on how long you want your sweater to be. You can make it waist length, you can also make it longer, just whatever you like. And then we gather them onto that waistband. For the back, nothing different, nothing special, just plain on. So very easy, very simple to do, no difficult patterns or difficult sewing. So for the pattern for the top you will need your basic pattern for a top, and I will link up here and down in the description box how you can make that basic pattern to your own size and body type. It's very easy to do. We will use that. I have folded it doubled from the waist because I'm only using it the top part until the waist. We're not going to use the darts. And what you do is you put it on another piece of paper and you trace that down and you mirror it. So mark where your middle is, flip it over to the other side and then trace that down again, so that you have your whole pattern left and right on this piece of paper. Then what you do is I mark here where my shoulder line stops, so where my neck hole for the front begins here at the shoulder. We're not going to use that neck hole because we're going to change it into that web. We're now making the left pattern, but it is the same for the right pattern when you flip that over, so that doesn't really matter. And then what you do, you take your ruler and you mark, you see this is the other part of your pattern. Here was the middle, and you mark where the middle is of your white pattern piece that we're not going to use. So here is the middle of that white part of the front. And then I'm going to connect where my shoulder ends to where that mark is for half the pattern on the other side. And then you make a straight line. And that will be just your wrapped part. Of course you can make it further on, you can make it less, whatever you like. I like the same as for the skirt. I like to do it just about halfway, but you can also do it until the other side seam. That is nice too. They have more wider wrap, but now for this two-piece I like to do it just halfway. And then you can just cut this off, because only this part is of course the pattern that you need. And then again, when you flip it over, you have the white part that will be on top of the left one. So it's very easy to do. I will take my scissors. Like that. And for the back, you can just use your normal pattern. Again, flip the bottom part up because you only need till the waist. Of course, if you want your top to be longer, then you can use a little bit more of your pattern, or just cut some onto your fabric. You can do that too. It's just depending on how long you want your top to be. And here, of course, you just use your back neck hole. And then you only need your basic pattern for the sleeve. Again, I will link them up here and down in the description box. I'll just use my basic pattern. It's really worn out already because I use it so much. The only thing that I did is I folded under the bottom around 8 to 10 centimeters because I want my short a little bit shorter, because I want to give it a high cuff, and that means that I need less fabric on my sleeve itself. And that's all that you need for the sweater. And then when you cut it out, you have this. This is your front, and as I said, it is mirrored, so your other part is just laying down. You can flip it over and you have nicely your wrap. And if you're not as dumb as I am and you think before you cut your facing onto your fabric, I already got it out and I thought, oh my gosh, I need this facing, because we're gonna do the same as the skirt, put a facing underneath to finish it off, and then again you can do that zigzag as I did for the skirt. And now I have a loose facing that I have to sew on and then flip under and top stitch it. But of course you can just cut this on, put your fabric underneath, so that you can exactly make the same cuts as the pattern is, and then you have this attached, and that is all of course more nice, because then you don't have this seam here. But I didn't think, and I was just cutting, and then I forget to do that. So try to attach this to your pattern. And I made the same form as my skirt, around 3 to 4 centimeters, so that I can make a hem of around 2 centimeters wide, and then you can embellish that if you like to. Then for the back, just cut out your pattern, of course, on the folds. Did I do that? Yes, I did. And again, you have to cut a loose facing here, because you cannot cut it on. Just trace the same neck hole as your pattern has, and then make a facing around 2 centimeters wide, 3 to 4 centimeters wide, same as for the front, the same width. And then for the sleeve, well, just cut out the sleeve, nothing special, nothing strange to do here, and that's it. And then we can start sewing. So put your back part opened and put your front pieces on top of them, right sides together. So just place your shoulder seams together, and we're going to start with sewing the shoulder seams. So pin them on either side. And sew them down. And I hope that you saw my sewing tips when you sew with knitted fabric, because there are some little tips and tricks that can help you have this, let us have a good outcome. So make sure you read them first before you start sewing. As always, iron and press down your seams immediately after you've done it. Then you get the nicest result, because later on it's difficult to iron down some of the seams. So I laid my pattern open. This is my front, this is my back, this was the shoulder seam. I marked on my sleeves where the middle is of my sleeve, just by folding it together and marking where the fold is. And now we're gonna pin on our sleeves, and this is a nice method when you are afraid that you won't get your sleeves in nicely without bunching up here on the shoulder of your sleeve. So just pin your marking together with your shoulder seam and pin that down, and then pin the end of your sleeve to the end of your armhole, And you do that also on the other side of your sleeve. And then you can just pin this nicely distributed over the whole armhole from the front to the back. And then you sew that down, and of course also do that on your other sleeve. Are in. Now we can close up our side seams and sleeve seams. So you put your front parts on top of your back part, right sides together of course. Then line up here your underarm seam and pin them together. And then you can close up here your side seams and your sleeve seams. And then you can just sew that down, same on the other side. And then your sweater is nicely together. And then we're gonna finish the other parts. Looking a bit like a sweater now. What we're going to do now is finish the front line and the neck hole in the back. So I took my back facing, and I have these two separates here on the front because I forgot to cut it on. If you have them attached to your front patterns, then just attach this to the facing part of your front pieces, and then you can just continue with that. So I'm gonna attach these together on the shoulder seam, and make sure when you have separate ones that you do it right. I always have to check when I have pinned them on by putting it onto my sweater or my cardigan or whatever I'm making, if I did it the right way, because sometimes you just get confused, and you must make sure that you did it right when you lay it like this, that your curves are okay, and like this they are matching up, so that is okay. So you're gonna sew both your shoulder seams of your facing, and then put them all like this, and it's better to understand. Like that. Sew the shoulder seams, and then we're gonna sew them onto the whole front and back of our sweater. Pinned my whole facing part all around the neck hole, so the two fronts and the back that were attached, and I'm gonna sew that on, then flip it under to the other side. Put the seam allowance in, and then top stitch it from the right side, of course, but this is to the inside. And then again I'm gonna make that zigzag stitching as I did for the skirt. I'm not sure if I only do it on the right part, maybe I will also do it on the left part, although it will not really be visible. I think I will do it just on the right part. And I will do it now immediately in a more darker thread, because that lighter one wasn't visible, and that was not of any use. So I'm gonna do that. Well, you can do exactly the same, unless you don't want to do the embellishment, then just sew this on, flip it under and top stitch it, and iron it down very nicely, because then we're gonna make the wrap and make the waistband. So this must be finished very nicely. out my sweater how it should be. I put my web right over left and I pinned it down here on the bottom. I cut out a waistband, or when your top is longer, measure a hip band, so measure around your waist or your hip where your sweater will hit you, how long you want it to be. So it's depending on how long you made your sweater and also how stretchy your fabric is. So just try it on with your fabric if it is fitted like you want it to be. I made mine 10 centimeters wide on the double, so 20 centimeters, and then doubled up. And I also cut 2 cuffs for the sleeves. Also measure around your wrist how tight you want it to be. I made mine 21 centimeters, but it's just depending on how tight you want it to be and how thick or thin your arms are. And I made mine 7 centimeters on the double, so 14 centimeters in total. And what you're going to do for all the 3 parts is you make first a circle out of it, so the short edges together, just by folding them double and sewing them down. And when you've done that, then you put them wrong sides together in a circle, and then you can attach them to your the waistband, of course, to the bottom of your sweater, and the cuffs to the bottom of your sleeves. And you can do that just doubled up, and mark where your mid front is and mark the side seams, and then you can align that to the bottom. So then make sure that the sides of your waistband are connected to the sides of your sweater, and the mid front and the mid back are connected too. And you can just sew them on doubled up like this, pin them on, and then sew just all around. And same for the cuffs. And then your sweater is done. And I thought maybe you can see now better that wavy effect that I made also on the skirt and now on the right side of my web. I will zoom it in a little bit. Because I think with the sweater it's a little bit more visible, but it's still very subtle and very difficult to catch on camera, so I'm not sure if you can see it, but in real life it really gives a little bit special to the edges, and I really like how it looks. I marked my mid front and mid backs. I'm gonna put my waistband or my top into the waistband, and then I can pin it all around. So I'll just match up the side seam, and you can just pin both parts of your waistband to the top. You don't have to sew them on separately. Other side seam, the mid front, and make sure you take both of the fronts together onto the waistband. And the mid back to the seam of your waistband. And then you can just distribute the rest of your top to your waistband, and you probably have to stretch it out a little bit, but that's not a problem. Just stretch it out a bit, and when you sew it on with a zigzag or stretches, it will just stretch back. For the cuffs, do exactly the same. Mark the opposite side of your seam and mark the opposite on your cuff, and then put your sleeve inside your cuff, then line up those 2 points and distribute the rest of your fabric in between by stretching out the cuff a little bit and then pin it on. Whole two-piece together, the sweater with the skirt. I put on my sneakers that I would never wear, sneakers with the skirt. Well, better I never wear sneakers period, because I don't like them, and especially with skirts I'm not really a fan of that. But I thought I would put it the same as the inspiration picture, so I put on my sneakers. But I think it's a really nice set. It is very comfortable. Everything is very nice and loose, and what I did is I pinned it down here because it falls always very open when I have these web tops. And what you can do is you can use the safety pin, but what I often do, I can show you, I'll just put an earring in and make sure that you don't poke yourself from the inside. But that's a very easy and nice way to close it up, that it won't fall open, and you can just take your earring out later and then it's open, because it's also nice to wear a nice lace camisole underneath it, or a nice just a plain camisole, and then it isn't a problem and it opens up, and then you have more options than when you sew it out. Of course you can do that too, but I think this looks really nice together. I would wear some nice boots underneath, or maybe even heels, because I think that is more appropriate for a skirt. But it's very now on trend to put sneakers underneath your dresses and skirts, so I thought, well, okay, I'll do that too and make a picture of it so that I can compare it with the inspiration picture. So I hope you liked this two-piece, and I can tell you next time we're gonna make another two-piece, but then we're gonna make a sweatpants and a sweater. So it's very different for me, because I do have a basic pattern on my channel for pants. It's also even for three different sorts of trousers that you can use. But I think I only made pants, I think 2 times on my channel. I know a leather one and also a white leg one, but I think those were the only 2 pants on my channel, because you might know I'm not really a fan of pants. I like more skirts, dresses, things like that. I'm not a trousers person. So we're gonna make next week, or 2 weeks, Sunday in 2 weeks, we're gonna make a sweatpants with a sweater, so really loungewear set. And I found some really nice fleece, so it also will be a rather nice, rather warm one, because in my country the weather is still rather cold. So it's really a nice piece to wear in the house, or as pajamas or whatever you like to do with it. But it's a comfortable one to have. This one is, for me, I think, a more dressy one, although you can lounge in this very well, because it's really nice to wear, very comfortable to wear. And the only thing is, my fabric is rather, not really, what's the word, basic. It has that little bit of lurex in it, so it has a little bit of a shimmer, and that makes it a little bit more nice. But this pattern you can of course also use and make in a sweater material, or in a fleece even, or in just some kind of jersey. That will be very nice too, and very comfortable. You don't have to do it in a knitted wear, in a knitted fabric, but also with jerseys, very nice to do. So I hope you like this one. I really love to do it, and I really love to have this. And thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done already, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks with another two-piece. Thanks so much for watching. Bye. See you.